Thanks for joining our monthly community webcast. I'm Jürgen Kress, member of the Oracle Product Management team. In case you missed one of our webcasts, on-demand recordings are available. For details, please see our monthly community newsletter and subscribe to our Video Hub partner channel. In today's presentation, the Flexagon team will introduce DevOps for Oracle Integration and the API Gateway. Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jürgen. Appreciate you having us.
Wonderful. So you're a long-time Oracle Source Suite integration expert.
Well, that's true, and obviously applications and such continue. So it's awesome to be leveraging Oracle integration technology, including the API Gateway as well.
Excellent. And with us is Eric Jones. Eric, welcome to the webcast.
Thanks, Jürgen, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm looking forward to showcasing FlexDeploy and having a good discussion.
Will your presentation include a demo?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a live demo as well as some orientation slides to go through today.
Wonderful, thanks. So with us is also Robert Wunderlich from the Oracle team. Robert is our API expert. Robert, welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me, Jürgen, and I'm glad to attend with Dan and see what the Flexagon team's been doing and talk to the partners.
Excellent. So objective of today's call is to introduce FlexDeploy, which is a DevOps automation platform that enables fast and efficient packaging, testing, development of code and configurations. It's a complementary tool which was initially developed in a Source Suite project and now supporting the latest Oracle Cloud architecture. So let's get started. Please pay attention to the Oracle Safe Harbor statement and quick housekeeping. Please feel free to post your questions via the conference Q&A tool or Twitter #AskCommunity anytime. At the end of the webcast, we will answer them. Slides will be available at the Video Hub channel and the community website. Please share your feedback via the Zoom survey at the end of the webcast. For today's agenda, after the announcements, I will hand over to the Flexagon team. They will introduce FlexDeploy, and Robert will give us some insights about API Platform Gateway. And we hope to welcome also Milad, who will give us an update on the upgrade process for Integration 3. And at the end of the webcast, we will answer your questions. Quick update on the partner side. I'm happy to announce that we will start a free certification program June 1st for all partners. And the free certification program will include Oracle Integration Professional Certification and Oracle Digital Assistant Professional Certification. Both in the latest versions. They should be released this week in the 2023 edition. So pay attention and make sure to get a voucher that you join the community for the developer community for Oracle Digital Assistant and the integration community. We are going to offer, again, hands-on trainings, both on the integration side and digital assistant side to get you trained. And with that preparation as a community member, and if you pass the training, join the My Learning platform and look for the promotion. The Oracle Integration Bootcamps are a 3-day workshop for partners, consultants who implement ERP, HCM, and CX. And the goal is that you get trained hands-on and that you can build a demo or proof concept. The integration training is now based on the latest release, Oracle Integration 3, and we already opened registration for the APEC training starting June 6, 8, and 12, and the other registration pages will follow very soon. All trainings and link to the registrations are promoted in our community newsletter. If you're not yet a member, make sure you register. And you can find all of that information, including today's slides, at the community website. On the digital assistant side, we also offer the hands-on training, which is a 1-day event for partners. And it's focused for developers and consultants who build user interfaces. And within 3 hours, you will build your own Oracle Enterprise chatbot based on Oracle Digital Assistant. We offer 2 schedules in Q1. The first one is for the US and Europe, Middle East, and Africa on July 13th. And the second one is Asia time zone on July 14th. Registration for this training is also open. and details are published in the newsletter and on the community website. Quick updates on the customer side. We started a webinar series for new customers who would like to connect SaaS, and we focus on different SaaS services like ERP and HCM, CX, NetSuite, and eBusiness Suite. The next webcast will be June 7th in the morning, European time zone, and we will present best practice patterns for HCM, human capital management integration. In case you missed one of the webcasts, they are also available on demand. The next product update is scheduled on June 15th, and Milad will give some details about the upgrade process. That webcast is mainly targeted towards customers. Also for customers, we released the latest newsletter. And on the digital assistant side, we continue to promote the best practice webcast series, which is a great 6-part series to build better bots. We will continue with the EMEA Success Webcast series on July 25th with a presentation from Box Fusion talking about enterprise bots in the area of CX and Service Cloud. And our next product update webcast, Robbie and myself will update you on the latest releases and the new features on June 28th. All of that information is also published in the newsletter. So today's webcast is live, and the recording will be available, including on-demand version and slides at Oracle Video Hub. With that short introduction, I would like to hand over to the Flexagon team. Dan, welcome and thanks for attending.
Yeah, thanks again, Jürgen. Eric's running the whole show today, so we'll pass it over to Eric immediately to run the quick presentation and demonstration.
Great, thanks, Jürgen. And thanks everyone for joining today's webinar, DevOps and CICD for OCI Integration and API Gateway. My name is Eric Jones. I'm a principal architect at Flexagon. I've been working with Oracle technology for a long time, and at Flexagon working with customers and partners. I'm in both Oracle and non-Oracle. Joining me today is Dan Gert. Dan is a member of the sales organization and leads the partners and alliances for Flexagon. If you want to go ahead and place any questions in the chat, Dan will be monitoring that, answering as we go, and then if time allows, we'll do a little Q&A at the end. I'm going to spend maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little less, in some orientation through slideware, and then we'll spend the majority of the time in demo with Q&A at the end. So the FlexDeploy platform, it's an enterprise DevOps platform, not specific to any one technology, but we have very vast support for large ecosystems. And of course, we're talking about Oracle today, specifically the integration related technologies. But the platform itself is really looking to manage the entire development and delivery lifecycle of your software, ultimately delivering it into production, but managing the automated build, deploy, integrating in with automated testing, security scanning, and the security and governance that goes along with your software delivery. It's made up of 3 major components, starting with the build automation, which may be manual or using continuous integration, that will pull the source, oftentimes from a source control system, perform the related build activities, ultimately producing a versioned artifact in the inbuilt artifact repository. And then there's the deploy automation, which technology specific will take that output of the build artifact, and deploy it into the target environments. And then sitting on top of that is the release orchestration, which is going to manage through a pipeline the process specific to the customer of how software advances through the environments, tying in the tool chain like test automation and security scanning. I talk about the tool chain integration. This slide is showing the major DevOps tool chains. And in the center column with the icons, that's just a sample of some of the out-of-the-box integrations across these tool chain categories. And oftentimes there's native capability. So for like agile planning, for example, a lot of customers are using Jira or Azure Boards or GitHub or GitLab. But if not adopting those tools, FlexDeploy has inbuilt solution for managing work items or issues to track as part of your builds, manage the status, etc. And then across all these categories, you can bring your own tools. So FlexDeploy does not have integration out of the box. The open and extensible platform allows you to create your own integrations, and then it snaps in, plug and play, and can be used throughout the configuration, just like the out-of-the-box integrations. And so what this provides then is a secure and high-quality software supply chain, as we say. So it's not just the automated build and deployment, but injecting quality through automated testing, automating scanning, and ensuring it meets the quality metrics as it advances across the pipeline. And so just a little bit on the FlexDeploy platform. Through the module design, it's broken down into primitives. We think of it as the what, how, and where. The what being modeling of the software components across the organization in a project, and then they bundle together into a release, which defines a shared delivery milestone. Then the how, the workflow provides the orchestration steps to build, deploy project components. And then the pipeline, think of that as a workflow that's orchestrating the release across your environments, not just the automated deployment, but all the controls and governance and quality metrics as you advance through that pipeline. And then the where is a logical and physical definition of your build and deploy targets. And I'll show all this in the demo. Then we layer on the platform capabilities like continuous integration, the inbuilt artifact repository, out-of-the-box plugins for a lot of Oracle technology as well as non-Oracle. The integrations, webhooks, and APIs really enable integration with any tool chain or any third-party systems that have APIs available. And lastly, what the platform is then going to provide is a common data model that's not just the software component, but the ties to your agile planning, your service management, your source code. And we'll see that all the way through the execution, which then gets rolled up into reports, which can be used for internal and external audits. It rolls up even further to a dashboard, which allows you deep insights to how your CICD is performing and the continuous improvement opportunities that lie ahead. One of the things that's a differentiator for FlexDeploy is the support for large enterprise applications. And I say applications loosely, it's the applications themselves, like Fusion applications, e-business suite, but it also comes into play for large middleware systems such as Integration Cloud and API Gateway. And so what the solution does is it recognizes that what we have as part of small teams, but certainly large teams, is a number of components that need to get bundled for changes that represent an issue, a defect, project that you're working on, and then manage the life cycle of that subset of components. So the package-based model will automatically discover the components from the source control system. So I may have hundreds or thousands of APIs and integrations. And after that discovery, I can create a package which is going to represent some piece of code or some defect that I'm working on. I can add in the components from the file catalog, and then the build and deploy lifecycle occurs against that package. And so what that leaves me with then is when I deploy into, say, production, I'll be able to see all the way down to the component level So the API or the integration, what version was deployed, who deployed it, what source code commit did it come from, what JIRA issue, etc. I think I'm going to skip some of these slides. They'll be available in the presentation, but I'll just skip by and talk specifically about FlexDeploy for OIC and API Gateway. So the solution will manage the deployment of integrations, connections, lookups, and libraries. You can source either from a source code repository like GitLab or GitHub, as well as you can source directly from a development instance of OIC as well. Not the best practice, but we do have customers doing that as well. And then we can trigger actions from the Integration Studio using a browser extension. And what that means, and I'll show it in the demo, is that once you complete your development changes for, say, an OIC integration, you can trigger an action to have FlexDeploy commit that to source control, and then using continuous integration, initiate the build. We can manage the environment-specific connection properties, and I'll show that in the demo. So you have a master definition of your properties, and then by environment, FlexDeploy can replace things like the URLs and the credentials. As well as I'll show the tagging capability of the FlexDeploy for OIC plugin. So what that allows you to do is, as you're deploying like APIs, you can associate some context, like what's the version that was built, what revision did it come from, what is the URL to the execution performed through FlexDeploy. So we have that bi-directional link between FlexDeploy and OCI, and then the other direction as well. And not the focus of today's webinar, but I'm sure your customers implementing the integration technology are most oftentimes using the Fusion applications or e-business suite, and just know that FlexDeploy has broad support for those as well. One more slide on the broad support for Oracle in general that goes across database and dev tools, middleware, apps, BI, and the cloud infrastructure. But we'll focus on the two that are highlighted. And last slide before we jump into the demo, and this is really a setup slide for the demo itself. So this is a sample 3-stage pipeline that I've created for today's demo. But ultimately, your customers that are adopting FlexDeploy would be, creating their own pipelines that map to their process. So here, my 3 stages are test, QA, and production. You'll see in the steps, it's performing the deployment, but I've added in a number of things here. The execute functional tests, that's going to execute Postman tests that I've developed for testing my OIC integrations and my APIs. Next in QA, I see a test quality gate here. This is going to verify that the Postman test that I ran is meeting a defined quality metric, such as 100% of the tests should pass. Can also run security scans as part of my build, if it's static code analysis, or post-deployment, if it's dynamic application security testing. So similarly, I can check and maybe only advance if there's no critical or high issues that are detected. And I have a manual FlexDeploy approval from the quality lead and scheduled the change from the 10 to 11 a.m. window. Next, the automated deployment, execute some more tests, verify those tests meet the quality metrics from QA. And then I have another approval, which is a approval that's integrated with service management tool. This happens to be ServiceNow. So at runtime, we'll associate a change request number, and FlexDeploy will monitor and systematically advance past the gate when the underlying change is approved. Last is the deployment to production. And then I've added in a integration with Slack to notify stakeholders that the deployment to production has been completed. All right. So with that, let me switch over to FlexDeploy and start the fun part, the demo. So just a quick review of some of the primitives within FlexDeploy. Not going to go real deep here. But one of the first things you would do is logically identify what environments the customer has. In my demo environment, I have development, test, QA, and production. Next is going to be the physical connection to build and deploy endpoints. This is either SSH-based, agentless, or we also support agents where you install a software component on each target. But for today's demo, since this is PaaS services, we don't have access to the underlying infrastructure. So we'll be using the local host endpoint, which will then use public APIs from Oracle to perform the build and deploy activities. What ties it together then are what's called the target. If I look at the OIC target, think of this as a logical grouping of your components that are going to span many environments. So in my case for OIC, I have installations or services in development, test, QA, and production. These then become the targets. So a target group has many targets. Drilling in for that target, what's the endpoint that it's going to run on? And based on the technology of the workflows that are mapped, any environment-specific properties will be managed for each one of these targets. One more primitive that I wanted to cover here is the build and deploy workflow. So this is the build workflow for OIC, which is very simple. This is a one step to perform the build. And the reason why these end up being very simple is because they use out-of-the-box plugins that are provided. So if we look at the plugin for Oracle Integration Cloud, it looks like there's roughly about 20 operations. So these are simple to create. It's simple drag, drop, configure, and then these can be used by many different projects. So the responsibility of this build workflow is to collect the source and create the version artifact. And then the corollary deploy workflow is responsible for taking the published artifact from the build and deploying that to a specific target. So this workflow is reused across all environments. So when it deploys based on the environment that's requested, it will collect the information like which endpoint do I run on and what are the environment specific properties for Oracle Integration Cloud. So now let's see how that all ties together back on the projects. If I go into my project for Oracle Integration Cloud, I'll look at a couple of pieces of configuration. First is the source control. So here I'm storing all my OIC integrations and connections and other objects in a GitHub repository, and I'm going to build everything from the main branch. The next configuration is a static binding to the build and deploy workflow. Those are the two we just reviewed. And then it also has a static mapping to the logical target group from the topology. And I mentioned in the slides the package-based model, which is what is followed for OIC. So FlexDeploy is automatically discovering all of the integrations and other objects from GitHub and presenting them in the catalog. And what that allows me to do then is create a package like this Ally 21, and I can add the components that I'm going to modify as part of some feature. In this particular issue, for this particular package, I'm statically binding it to this Ally 21 issue that for me comes from Jira. So we'll see that tracked throughout the execution and into the reports. But to add these from the file catalog, I can simply list the catalog, works like a shopping cart, or I can search by name or specific commit, add them, adds them back to the package. And so now the build and deploy lifecycle happens against this package. So when I build it, FlexDeploy will pull a specific revision from GitHub. In my case, I'll take the latest revision. It creates a zip file and versions it as the artifact. And then at deploy time, they'll be shipped to the target endpoint, the artifact unzipped, and then deployed into the target environment in the order that they're listed here. So if there are any dependencies where one has to be deployed before the other, you can simply resequence through drag and drop of the objects in the package. All right, so with that, now I could come to FlexDeploy, and you see I have a number of builds, deploys, and tests that are happening against my Allied 21 package. But what I'm going to do is go into my Oracle Integration Cloud dev instance, which this happens to be Oracle Integration 3. And if your customers have not moved yet, we do support Generation 2 as well. I'm just going to go into the designer for one of my integrations, this city weather, and make a simple change. Edit, and I'm just, for simplicity, I'm just going to update this counter in the description. But it could be any real change. Go ahead and save that and go back to my list of integrations. So this is typically where the developer would then export this object to the file system, use their Git client to commit it, and at that point, perform a build operation. What FlexDeploy has is a browser extension that works with both Chrome and Firefox, and is integrated in through these actions to the OIC screen, and it's going to present a list of the integration IDs that are available on the page. So I'm going to pick the city weather integration I just modified and submit a request to FlexDeploy through a webhook. So what this is going to allow me to do, if I look at the utility project that runs through that webhook, and just look at the execution steps here. This is the workflow that I built using all out-of-the-box plugin operations for both OIC and Git. And what it's going to do is clone my repository, export the integration that was selected in that browser extension, so the city weather version, overlay it into my local Git repository, add it if it's new, commit it to my local branch, and then push it to the central server. So this was all initiated through Oracle Integration Cloud without ever having to directly use a Git client. So now if I go back to my main OIC project, you'll see that the Allied 21 package was just built. And that's because I have continuous integration set up. So as soon as that change got committed by my utility workflow, the package containing that file was automatically built. And in just a few moments here, we'll see that a initiation to orchestrate through the pipeline will be initiated. Well, we wait for that, and there it is. But you'll also see that the build was for Allied 21. It was from the main branch. Here's the generated version. Here's the commit ID, and then here's the tie to the JIRA issue. If I drill in, I'll see the steps that ran. I have access to the logs. Certainly more exciting when things fail. It'll help you debug. But it produces the artifact, which is the zip file. And the files tab is going to identify the components that are in the package, specifically what revision was pulled from on the build, and then the committer information from those changes in those objects. If I download this artifact and open it, you see that, yes, it has the integrations in it, but it also has, and this is stored in my Git repository, what's called a connection plan file. Basically, this is a key value property file for all the properties on your connections. That'll have things like your API key, any URLs, and then we can use properties from FlexDeploy using this format. And so what that allows us to do is externalize everything to the properties in the FlexDeploy topology, and you can manage all your environment-specific API tokens and URLs from there. All right, so now let's look at the post build. We can see that the deployment occurred to the test environment, and then my postman tests ran. So that is happening through the release orchestration. So I showed the sample pipeline that I'm using. This is the runtime execution of all of my builds running through the pipeline. So we can see the latest one deployed successfully into test, ran the postman tests. They all passed, so it passed the gate. There were no issues in the security scan, and it's now pending approval by the quality lead. And the quality lead can then approve the change. They can do it through email, Slack, Teams, but here I'll do it right in FlexDeploy. It's now scheduled for the 10 to 11 a.m. window, and as luck would have it, it's within that window here Central Time. So in just a moment, it should move into the steps, and now it's running the deployment into QA. So what's flowing through here? So if we take a step back and look at the release, which I've called my Oslo sprint. So within this release, I have two components. I have the Ally 21, which is the package we were looking at for OIC that has those two integrations in it. But I also have a API in there for the API Gateway, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But this release then is bound to the pipeline, which is that three-stage process that we reviewed. And so every time there's a new build of either one of these components, it'll create what's called a release snapshot. And the snapshot is going to be the release contents, but then the specific builds. So every time I create a new change, I get a new snapshot, with the idea being that eventually one of these snapshots advances all the way to production, and the rest of them that get passed will become out of date. And then the newer snapshot is what will flow through to production. At that point, the release is really at the end of its life cycle, and then you would create a new release for next sprint, next month, whatever methodology you're using, and the process starts over. Go back to the project. Let's show a couple of things here. Just want to show the executions that ran. Drill into the deployment. I'll see the step, which is just that one step to deploy the integrations. See the logs of what occurred. And then on the files tab, now I'm going to see the specific components from the package that were deployed. We'll notice that City Weather deployed successfully, but Hello World was skipped because that version of that component was already previously deployed. So there's built-in change detection. Now I want to drill into my automated tests using Postman. If I look, not only will FlexDeploy execute the test, but it also retrieves the results back and stores them. So then these results can be used in the pipeline gates to make those quality assessments before matching. So my rule is saying that 100% of the tests need to pass to systematically advance that gate. Right. Now I want to switch gears a little bit and look at the Oracle API Gateway project. It's very similar in that it uses the package-based model. So here I have a number of specifications, either using Open API or the Oracle specification format. We support both. This is again sourcing from GitHub. So the files are automatically discovered. And then in a similar fashion, I can create a package and add my API specifications to that package and then perform the build and deploy across. So here, what I'm going to do to run this live is I'm going to look at the source code configuration and just link to that. And I'm going to make a simple change to my API specification. Go to the city weather JSON, and I'm just going to make a superficial change by updating this description. I'll commit the change. And again, through continuous integration, I should see that my build is initiated. And it should come in here in just a couple of seconds. And there it is. So it's the same process. It's using, again, the Oslo release. So what will happen is the build will execute. It's currently running the build operation, and it's going to produce an artifact versioned in the artifact repository. And then it ultimately creates a new snapshot in my Oslo sprint release, and another execution will be available in the release dashboard. So while that's running, there's a couple more things that I want to show, and this gets into the execution details that are available through the reports and dashboards. So as you're using FlexDeploy for, months, years, there's going to be a lot of detail that gets collected about the deployments, the approvals, the schedules, any changes that are made to the configuration that's available at your fingertips. So in the environment history report, and I'm filtered for my integration related technologies in the Oslo sprint, this is going to show me for all my API specifications, all my integrations, what version of each object was deployed, when, where, and by who, along with the tie out to the source code commit. If you're using agile planning tools like Jira, you'll see the link to the issue number. And when I deploy into production, I'll be linking it with the ServiceNow change object. So we see that correlation here as well. So this obviously becomes very important for debugging issues, but even more so for, internal and external audits. You're able to quickly capture that information without spending days or weeks in preparation. So a number of other reports there, like the ability to compare two environments and see the differences, find the approvals, any schedules, and maybe they were overridden. You'll see all of that through the reports. The last item I really wanted to show is the dashboards. And so dashboards are a visualization of how your DevOps processes are performing. So just like workflows and pipelines, customers can create their own dashboards using one of about 20 out-of-the-box metrics. And so the way that works is you identify the metric you're interested in, like deployment duration. Maybe you want to see 60 days worth of data. You want to see a different type of chart. So there's a number of inputs, but you drag that metric into the dashboard. it will compute the data automatically and on demand. So the idea here is that, there's a couple of different types of metrics here. This one is using more performance-based metrics, more developer type metrics. So you're going to see, insights into any tasks that are assigned to me. What are the projects I've accessed most recently? What source code commits are occurring that are recent against my repositories? Any linked issues for my builds? Frequent source code committers, and anything that's currently executing. But then there's another dashboard that I've created, which is more of a performance type dashboard that's going to measure things like deployment frequency, lead time for change, which is the time from source code commit until the time that commit makes its way to a production deployment. So you can set goals, track, adjust your processes, and continuously improve over time. Just two more metrics to call attention to. The top two are about deployments, but you can also plot the results of your automated tests and your security scans as well. So with that, I think I'll pull it into the presentation. On this slide is the contact information for both Dan and myself. For any technical questions, you can route those to me, and then Dan would take any conversations related to any customer opportunities or general partnership conversations with Flexagon. So with that, Dan, I'll hand it back over to you to moderate any questions coming in from the chat.
So Eric,
I think, Jürgen, sorry, go ahead.
No, fine. Thank you very much for the wonderful demo, Eric. Impressive. So we will take some more questions and we will answer them at the end. If you have questions, you can post them anytime in the Q&A. As Eric showed a little bit how to manage API Gateway in FlexDeploy, we have Robert Wunderlich with us. Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you, Jürgen.
Thanks for joining from Florida.
Yeah, thank you.
So what is API Gateway?
I did bring a couple of slides I'm armed with, but API Gateway is just part of the infrastructure. So it's the same infrastructure that Oracle Integration runs on and the others. We take a cloud native approach to APIs. And so what I mean by that is beginning with a product that we had before with API Platform and then into API Gateway is we're decoupled the process of securing APIs from building APIs. So, when you look at kind of the general life cycle, our developers are building things and then they want to make sure that they're secure when they put them out. And then, of course, they want to continue to operate and manage them. And so that is really key because we want developers to have the freedom of choice. So you can go to the next slide and we can see kind of the layout here. When we look at this, API Gateway is agnostic to the implementation technology. So what I mean by that is if you are, say, connecting SaaS, for example, and you want to use low-code integration, you have Oracle Integration. If you're building some very specialized purpose-built that you have developers writing code, you have a wide range of capabilities to be able to do that. The securing of your APIs needs to be standardized. And so we put that across API Gateway. It's a serverless technology, just part of the infrastructure. One of the things that I will call out is API Gateway, like a lot of the services, have a really strong DevOps capability. They have native support for Terraform, for Ansible, REST API, SDKs, a bunch of stuff. And this is actually something that a partner like Flexagon can use to integrate with those services. And the part that Flexagon's bringing here is this kind of cross application or cross just a customer, an enterprise customer has a bunch of different technologies. Some of those technologies like API Gateway and Oracle integration, but can be, you know, EBS and stuff, e-business suite, stuff like that. So that's bringing that together. So it all works together very well. And then, you know, with this, you basically have built-in monitoring. So, you know, anything coming through API Gateway, you can put through to logging and metrics. You can use logging analytics. You can use all of the capabilities, advanced dashboarding to build from that. So you can use as little or as much as you want, and it's very open and very extensible. You can go to the next slide. So if you look at it from just a network architecture layer, this is where API Gateway sits. It's at the edge, it's at the network. And so you can build and operate with any kind of technology you want, you know, in between. And then you're just using that to apply policies. API Gateway works with web application firewall. So when you're wanting to implement your OAuth 10 policies and other protections against both web and APIs. API Gateway has recently expanded into more of an app gateway model as well. It is supporting things like OpenID Connect. So we have customers who are using API Gateway to enforce single sign-on, you know, for their web applications. This is just so that you know, as partners, this is born out of an initiative where we are using API Gateway for our own services. So if you look at Oracle as a whole, I think we're the one provider that has the most robust portfolio of services, right? You look at the full SaaS portfolio that we have, and you know, we need to do this for our business, and that's what we're doing. So when you look at API Gateway, network policy enforcement point, as we talked about, it's only ensuring, I call it colloquially, I call it the bouncer at the bar. You know, it's basically the service that's going in there and saying, is the client, you know, does the client have the appropriate token? Have they been properly authenticated and authorized? And if they're not, you know, we're blocking it. Otherwise, we're letting it through and we're logging the traffic. We can also do monetization. We have a very capable usage plan capability with an API Gateway, and you can tie that to any subscription management system that you wish, and you can individually throttle clients. We can go to the next slide. So, oh, there you go. Cool. Yeah, excellent. Perfect timing.
Robert, thank you very much for the update on API Gateway. So impressive tool. Before we come to the Q&A, quick summary. If you're not yet a member in the partner community, please make sure that you join the developer community for the chatbot details and the integration community. Visit the FlexDeploy website, and if you would like to partner with FlexDeploy, reach out to them. We are offering the free certification program, so get a free voucher, and the vouchers are for community members who attended the hands-on training. And you will find the vouchers as part of the Race to Certification Challenge. All information is published on the community websites. So for the question and answer, the first question comes from Munish for Dan. How is Flexagon DevOps different from Oracle Visual Studio or OCI DevOps?
Yeah, I think the short answer, and hopefully you got a sense for this. I know the question was asked up front, but along the lines of what Robert referenced in the end and what Eric showed, it really is, FlexDeploy is an enterprise platform that you can apply to any technology. And you saw the broad list of support for Oracle, both traditional, as Jürgen referenced, all of the call it the traditional SOA suite and such, all the way through the broad set of cloud-related services. And so it does that as a generic platform with support out of the box for all of that Oracle capability, you know, and support for other technologies. So, for example, if your customers are integrating, you know, Fusion applications with Salesforce, they can snap that in as well. So it provides that very broad and deep solution. So I'll leave it at that. We can go from there, Jürgen.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is for Eric from Ayums. Does it migrate the database objects created in ATP, which are used in the integration?
You might be
Eric,
on
you're
mute,
mute.
Eric. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. As we, talked in the slides up front, there's very broad support for Oracle in general. So one of the solutions available is managing the underlying database objects, whether it's for your APIs or your applications, right? We can manage kind of all of that, which can be rolled into a release so that it all orchestrates across the process together.
Excellent, thanks. Next question is for Robert. How works API Gateway together with Oracle integration, and what are the use cases?
So mostly between API Gateway and Oracle integration is when you're creating RESTful triggered integrations. But a lot of times when you create a RESTful triggered integration, that's still what we would call a system level or business level integration. And when you're exposing an API to partners, you tend to stitch together multiple implementations on your backend for your front end. So what you can do is go ahead and expose a RESTful integration on an Oracle integration, and then you can take that as a backend for API Gateway. We do offer also advanced authorization capabilities through our authorizer functions that you can perform on behalf of operations for partners to be able to authenticate them to Oracle integration without giving them full invoker access into Oracle integration.
Okay, and one more question on the API side from architecture.
I had a network glitch. Can you repeat?
Yeah, a question from Boris. What about the Oracle certification program for APIs?
We are represented in the Oracle Certified Architect program. So when you get your when you get that certification, it will cover API. We also do from an industry level. We work with multiple industries such as like TM Forum. So if you go to oracle.com/API and select industry APIs, you'll see all of the work that we're doing with all of the different industry verticals, and that covers TM Forum.
Okay, next question for the Flexagon team from Sharan. Does it support both generation 2 and 3 and also on-premise products like SolarSuite?
the short answer is yes, it supports all of them.
That's quick, okay. Then there's a question, what about customer costs to use the tool Flexagon?
Yeah, it is a licensed subscription-based model. So customers have to pay if they're going to take it on. We offer other options for customer or partners as it relates to how you might use it for a specific project. And then certainly at a partner level, there's a no cost licensing for your internal demo environments, training environments, that sort of thing.
Okay, is it already available via the cloud marketplace?
It's in the marketplace. It's used there as a trial version, a 30-day trial version. For partners, we typically, if we engage with them, we'll help them get FlexDeploy up and running in their environment, configured for the use cases like integration or API gateway, and then get you off and running. But that's something maybe we could talk about. If you're interested, just reach out to me to better understand that.
Okay. As we talk about partner activities, do you offer a certification and training program?
Yeah, the training is part of our partner program. So if you come on board as a partner, we offer call it on-the-job training as part of setting FlexDeploy up in your environment. And then in terms of broader training and certifications, we are working on some other options there, including the ability to become certified. That is not available today, but it is on the roadmap. Okay.
Next question more on the use case side. Can FlexDeploy be used to migrate Oracle SaaS customers and shift them to the cloud?
The answer is yes, it can. Maybe we can. I'm looking at a few others. The answer is yes. All of those Fusion apps or SaaS application configurations, as well as the app composer, things like analytics, EPM, all of those are supported and are buried within that one slide Eric showed. But for everything I'm seeing in the different questions, including the latest being popped into the Q&A, the answer is yes.
Okay. Does it include analytics and EPM product features?
Yes.
Okay, also yes. And it also, you said also yes to the sandbox.
Correct. With things like Visual Builder and the call it that side of the low code environment. If you're choosing the Apex related, as you mentioned, well, it supports Apex as well. So the flexibility to use whatever you want in terms of some of that custom based application development.
Wonderful. So thanks for the excellent webcast. Special thanks to our presenters, to Dan and Eric from Flexagon. Special thanks also to Robert for the nice presentation and the brief update on API Gateway. If you have further questions, please post them on the community Slack channel or reach out to the team directly. As a summary, here are the resources for customers and partners. So make use of the community and the community website. We are looking forward to welcome you at one of our boot camps. There are plenty of blogs out there, and you can continue to use a Slack channel for any kind of questions. You can also reach out to the local team. Neil Kominski supports you in EMEA, Paulo Mota in South America, Harvey Shablani in the US and Canada, Ravi Pinto in India. Steve takes care of the rest of Asia. And for any kind of partner questions and customer activities, please reach out to myself. So thank you very much for attending today's webcast. Once you leave, please complete the online survey which pops up, and our next community webcast will be June 27. Thanks for attending.